I'm Marina Tarasova, and welcome to My Happy Thyroid, your source for all things thyroid health and wellness. My Happy Thyroid is presented by Paloma Health, the first online medical practice focused on living well with hypothyroidism. Today, we have a very special guest joining us. Fern Olivia Langham is the founder of Thyroid Yoga, and a fascinating person with a multifactorial background, who has had her own journey with thyroid condition and has actually built an empire to help empower others to feel better, with for those dealing with thyroid condition. So thank you so much for joining us today, Fern. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me here. Wow, that was a beautiful intro. And I feel just so grateful, so grateful, because it feels like such a, dream come true to help people all around the world with thyroid conditions and on autoimmune symptoms. So I'm really excited. To call it an empire is just the biggest compliment. I really think of it as a movement. It's a movement for holistic healing and sustained well-being. And thank you for having me here to share and inspire.
My pleasure, my absolute pleasure. So let's start with sort of your journey. And I know that what I find super fascinating is that you were trained in biochemical engineering. Then you turned to be a finance professional. I'd love to hear about what that was like, and what the journey was from working those really long days in New York City and days and nights, and kind of your health journey from there to where you are today.
Absolutely. So back in 2008, I graduated from Syracuse University in New York, and my major was biomedical engineering. So I graduated with honors in biomedical engineering. Though unlike the other students in my class, I did not want to go into the medical field because I just really there was something that didn't sit well with me. That it seemed like medicine was just this band-aid fix that I was seeing. Even with engineering, it just seemed so linear, and it wasn't into the deep heart of healing. So I went into finance, which didn't make much sense either. But I was searching. I didn't really know what was going on in my own body, and I needed money to be able to support myself and a life, to be able to live up to the standards I wanted. And what happened was, in doing that and living in New York City, fast-paced life, I got adrenal burnout. I was so stressed and so just running all over the place that I fainted in the subway one day. And my body said to me, literally, "This is not okay. You can't live like this." I was running on empty. My batteries were completely shutting down, and it was just like that iPhone that you never get a full charge. It's like always on empty. It's always dying. It's always at like 3%, and you charge it for a little bit and then it dies again. That's how my life was. I would go on a retreat, or I would, have a cleanse, and I would feel better for like a month or something. But then again, I'd crash. And it wasn't this lifestyle where I felt consistently good. And I decided I needed to become my own researcher. So instead of going to I went to top endocrinologists in New York City, and they were just giving me more and more medication. And instead of taking that diagnosis and saying, okay, I have Hashimoto's. I was scared, first of all, when I got that name. I was like, what is this? It's so scary. It just sounds like this weird thing. And at the time, it was back in around 2008, 2009 when I was diagnosed. And at that time, there wasn't, even though when you look back and if you read old books, Dr. Morse, Dr. Errett, there's a lot of now, you look at really old texts, there's a lot of information on this, but it wasn't readily available at the time I was going through all this. And I felt hopeless. I felt lost. And I said, you know what? I studied engineering. I studied biomedical engineering, and I pretty much went pre-med. So why can't I be my own researcher? And so that's when I created Thyroid Yoga, because I fell in love with the practice of yoga and how it was helping me tune into my body rather than tune out. Because other activities, I was just running or boot camp or spinning, and I was tuning out rather than listening into my intuition. And so Thyroid Yoga became this this quest to understand my own body, and then to help others to do this within themselves and empower people. So that's what's I've been working on over the past, I don't know, it's been since about 2011 when I completed my first yoga teacher training. And since then I've completed another teacher training. Um, I've done my Reiki master certification, intuitive healing certification. I've studied Ayurveda. I've studied integrative nutrition. I'm my own guinea pig, and I couldn't imagine living any other way. I love to learn, and I really love to serve. And so that's where the journey's been taking me right now.
Well, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm super curious as to the spark that brought the connection to from yoga to healing thyroid disease. Was it something that you mentioned an old text and some books you found? What was that sort of spark that led you to believe that there was a whole discipline around the thyroid? Yoga that could help the thyroid.
It was basically seeing it in my own body. I was practicing yoga in New York City, and I was beginning to realize that many people in New York City have a disconnect between how they feel, um, and the connection energetically in their body for their alignment to their path and their purpose. And it was through yoga that got me to a place of that awareness
Mhm.
that I hadn't discovered before. So yoga was a catalyst through the physical practice. I was starting to understand my own body, and that's really how it all began.
Super cool. Thank you. I also understand. So you mentioned you were trained by the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. You studied Ayurveda and Reiki, and you're sort of put all of those disciplines together. Am I missing? First of all, in addition to what you learned from those disciplines, what other research helped you to sort of develop um, this branch of healing?
It was basically yoga, Kundalini yoga
Mhm.
specifically,
Mhm.
has been the biggest catalyst. And then also, I would say another big component has been Reiki energy healing, and um, as well as my studies in intuitive work, psychic healing, and breath practices around that too.
So great. Were there any naysayers or skeptics along the way as you were going? And tell us about them and how you kind of dealt with them.
I wouldn't say too many skeptics because it works, and the people that actually would do the work that found me were ready for that. You know, they were fed up with going to doctors and taking the conventional treatments that were just band-aids. But I did see people along the way that just weren't ready for this type of work. You know, they didn't want to go in deeper into the soul journey of alignment to the path. And, you know, they would say, well, my T3, my T4, my TSH, and really just like all about the numbers.
Wow.
And it's not just about the numbers. It's the numbers are important, yes, and it's good to have a baseline with tests, of course. I think that's so important. But when my clients we're all about the analytics and not about the actual energetics and the holistic lifestyle practices, you can only go so far with medication and numbers. It's only one part of the whole piece of the pie.
For
So
sure.
I really just didn't have anyone criticizing what I do because it does work.
Yeah.
It's just that when people aren't ready, sometimes they question, and it's just like, no, 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 you you need to try it, just give it a try, and then you'll see the numbers go down, you'll see the TSH normalize, and then you'll feel better. Like, use it as, see how you feel. And that's a new concept for many people. They don't even know how to tap into how they feel, because a lot of times Western medicine for so many years doesn't even question how. It's like, oh, you feel bad, here, take Excedrin. Oh, you feel
Yeah.
gassy, take Pepto. I remember having Pepto every day for
Yeah.
my digestive stuff and Gas-X. Like, I literally would be at CVS every day getting
Mm.
something, whether it was Excedrin or Pepto or Gas-X or Advil. And we're not taught as a in the United States, at least, we're not taught to sit with the pain and to question why it's there.
Yeah.
In other cultures, in tribal medicine, we actually sit with the pain and we ask it questions. Like, what are you trying to tell me, rather than just mute it. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely know those trips to the drugstore here, and many people who are
Yeah.
running those. Now, what does it take? Tell me what it takes to have folks, once they're sort of committed or curious to following sort of such a discipline. Is it something they do daily for X amount of hours? Is it something, how regular does one have to be with thyroid yoga and sort of these other things, would you say, to help them feel somewhat, start feeling and seeing the differences in their symptoms, and maybe hopefully down the road and even their numbers as well?
Well, that's a fun question, because I say, how long do you want to feel better? Like, do you want to feel better for the rest of your life, or do you want to just like feel better for a week? So it's more work. Yes, for sure. I wake up in the morning and I go right to my yoga mat and I start my practice, and I have specific poses and sequences based in Kundalini yoga that are proven to regulate the glandular system and promote balance in the thyroid. And there's more and more research on these specific poses and kriyas, their set sequences. There's proven now, and more and more research showing that yes, this does clean the blood chemistry and clean the glandular system and calibrate the thyroid, um, and detoxify the liver. So I say, like, I'm going to do these practices every day for the rest of my life. And there's so many different practices too, that some are like 5 minutes, some are an hour. Sometimes I practice for 2.5 hours. And I notice that the days that I wake up and I'm consistent and I do this, the better I feel. And so instead of that feeling of feeling crippled and hurt and broken, I choose to show up and feel really good and make choices that are beneficial for my body. And the fun thing is, these practices are free. Everyone can do them. You just need to learn. And that's what I created as a program, so people can be empowered and learn. And once they understand how to become their own healer, they can take that with them for the rest of their life. And when a symptom comes up and there's a flare up, you know how to mitigate that, and you know how to interpret what your body's telling you. So that's what I teach. It's hard to just do that on your own. That's why I've created something that is very empowering, and it gives you your power back that, many Western or allopathic doctrines took away that power of entitling patients to be able to not even be a patient, to just understand their body. So I remember going to doctors when I was really sick and bringing research to them and saying, hey, look, gluten is attacking the thyroid gland because the protein molecule mimics that of the structure of the thyroid gland. And when you have an autoimmune condition or hypothyroidism, you should not be eating gluten. And they were like, wow, I've never heard of that. What's that? I was just like, oh my goodness, why am I paying you $800 for 20 minutes? This is absurd.
Yeah, there really is, definitely be done in bringing a little bit more of the Western training and the Eastern sort of more holistic training together. We certainly see a really big opportunity there. As practitioners of, Paloma is a thyroid medical practice. We're a holistic medical practice. So we believe, medication plus nutrition plus the things you're doing and the yoga side and sort of looking at yourself holistically are so important to do in
Hmm.
combination, and for different people different mixes of things may work best. But being in this world for the past few years, it seems like thyroid disease and autoimmune conditions like Hashimoto's are really approaching like almost epidemic levels. They're kind of silent epidemics around this country, affecting predominantly women. And it's striking. I mean, even the literature says there's over 25 million people that have hypothyroidism, most of which is autoimmune mediated, at least in the US. Tell us more about what you like. What do you think contributes to this? And let's talk a little bit more about what people can do.
Yeah, so the reason why I think, at least that I've seen in my practice, why first of all women more than men, is that women tend to notice the symptoms more than men. I do know that there are many men with thyroid conditions. However, women are the first to notice that they have weight gain. They're more vain in that sense, that we're like, we have this stubborn belly fat that won't go away, or the congestion or the food allergies. Or women are more, they're more intuitive as a species. Women are very, very intuitive, and we're very careful about our bodies. And also women tend to go through a lot of hormonal changes in life, and a lot of life transitions that completely can change the hormone balance in the body. Trauma and birth and menopause and puberty even. And so that's another. And then also we're being called right now energetically, the divine feminine is rising, and we're being called to seek and speak our truth, and to really be our creative, most expressed self. And so the thyroid energetically is our chakra of communication and self-expression. So if we're not in our truth, and we're not in alignment, and we're not speaking and in our power from a place of really deep, really deep confidence in our gifts, then our thyroid is literally saying to us, hey, speak up. I need you to understand what the blockage is, so you can live a life of joy and freedom and happiness, and give your gifts and speak your truth. So energetically, we're, as a whole planet, we're being called to this rising of the feminine. And so there's a big component that I believe, and that I've seen with many women that have come to me with thyroid conditions, is that they're not speaking their truth from an empowered place, or they feel not worthy, because as a child in our generations, we were taught to be seen and not heard. So I just remember as a small child, not really feeling empowered about my life. It was more like this, there was a programming around it of, this is what you need to do. And if you speak up or you speak too loudly, I remember always getting in trouble for speaking up in class, even when, what I had to say was very valuable. So I always felt like I wasn't worthy of being my fullest expressed self. And that time is over. It's time for us to shine. It's time for us to rise together. And even I've noticed in yoga classes when I teach, many women are so afraid to even sigh or sing or make noise. It's like, like that, just a sigh can really release deep seated stress in the body. And when I say, okay, inhale and then exhale, sigh, I get, like people just don't open their mouth. And it breaks my heart, because otherwise it's held in the body. And in a time where anxiety is such a, I can't tell you how many people come to me for anxiety. And, one of the best ways we can do that is to sing and to scream and to sigh and just let the body release. So that's another reason. It's just stored up in the body and stored up in the organs, all this tension and all this like scarcity and fear, and we're safe. We're really safe to express. We're in a place now where women are very supported in expressing their truth. So we just need to believe it, and that's healing. That's really healing, is the expression.
I hope everyone listening can do a collective sigh.
Yes.
I love it. Um, as a graduate of the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, I'm very curious about some of your tips on healthy eating, to share with our listeners around healing their thyroid. We talked about gluten as one thing, and I think that can be super helpful for many. What other tips do you have around eating healthfully on a daily basis that could help?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things is avoiding gluten. If you have a thyroid condition, eating gluten is the number one thing that you should avoid, because, as I mentioned earlier, gluten, the protein molecule gliadin, is the same structure, very similar structure of the thyroid gland, and the thyroid gland thinks it's an invader and will attack it. So if you have inflammation in your thyroid already, it's just going to add to more inflammation, which you don't want. So don't eat gluten. Gluten-free options are fine. However, there's a lot of cross-reactivity for someone who's sensitive. So I recommend, if you really want to heal, then stay away from all grains, meaning even rice, because rice can create inflammation also, and so can millet, so can others, just other types of grains. If you really want to heal for a short period of time, just go off all of it. The other thing that I've noticed is very inflammatory is dairy,
Mhm.
and getting off all milk, all cheese, and even eggs. And if you read Medical Medium's book, he talks about how eggs are also very inflammatory, and especially for those with thyroid conditions. And this doesn't all have to be permanent. And then you might be asking, oh my gosh, what can I eat? You can eat fruits and vegetables, and you can eat things like tahini, which is high in vitamin E, and you can eat nuts and seeds. Mostly if you eat sprouted, it's better for your digestive system. And then also I would suggest eating a lot of superfood, seaweed and spirulina and chlorella, because those are high in iodine and really, really helpful for a sluggish thyroid. I get questions a lot of how do you eat? How do you get your protein? There's so many myths out there that we need so much protein, and we don't need as much as they're saying that we need. And you can get a lot of that through your plant-based diet. Personally, I don't eat any animal protein. However, for clients that resonate with that, it's totally, I feel like that's up to them. But regardless, it should be clean. It should be really good sourced. If you are eating animal protein, please, please, please make sure it's a sustainable source, because I really believe in our precious ecosystem, and what we absorb in our body from our food is the energetic frequency from which that food was grown, or just an animal from that frequency of how that animal was treated. So we don't want to absorb any more fear than we're already containing in our body. So making sure that we're having ethically sourced food, and then also food that's local, and that food that's local to the region that we're in is really beneficial and really healing. Food that's in season. For example, in spring, it's really nice to have bitter greens, dandelion and asparagus, and even foods like, a lot of times there's a myth about cruciferous vegetables like
Yeah,
kale and bok choy, and there's this whole fear around eating cruciferous vegetables on a thyroid condition, and that's completely a hoax. You don't need to worry. Trust me on this one. It might create gas in your body if it's not cooked. If you have a sensitivity to, that type of food like cabbage without having it cooked, or broccoli or Brussels sprouts or kale, but those foods are all very high in phytonutrients that are cancer preventative. And there's a study, there was a woman who ate pounds and pounds of bok choy in, I think it was the 20s, and I think she had a pre-existing condition,
mhm,
and it created all this fear around the nodules and goiters. And the truth of it is, unless you're eating pounds and pounds
right.
and pounds of bok choy, you're not going to have an issue. And having a green juice with lots of kale is amazing. Celery juice is one of the best.
Yeah,
Cucumber juice is one of the best. And having a diet with a lot of greens is actually the best thing you can do to balance your thyroid, your hormones, and feel really good, because the greens just have so much nutrients in them, and great protein. Even in green vegetables, you get a lot of protein and a lot of fiber.
totally. Yeah, it's one of those, the cruciferous vegetable myth is one that we
Yes.
have to sort of educate on a lot, because like you said, if you're not eating buckets, you're not going to see it's okay. And some of our patients cut out all
Hmm.
vegetables for that fear, and that's
Oh no. Oh no.
so there's definitely a lot of work that all of us can do to help kind of decipher all of the noise out there for patients in terms of healing. So I'm super glad to hear that you're helping so many people out there. I guess maybe just in closing, I just want to sort of say, like, you know, from your perspective, you have built a very unique kind of, dare I say, idyllic lifestyle, and you've really found your place. You live now in Costa Rica, and you help train other yoga practitioners in the practice of thyroid yoga. You become sort of a go-to practitioner in the thyroid space. Some people call you the thyroid whisperer, and you've helped the
Yes.
well-being of many. I imagine you're on the beach, lots of beach time. You mentioned you were stand-up paddling, was it just earlier today?
Yes.
You mentioned your healthy eating lifestyle. You're eating very local and plant-based, lots of exercise. Sounds like you're having fun with it. What tips would you have for those of us, for those patients of us and of ours and listeners of ours that are still in that daily grind, and they may be working, in the New York finance world or LA or whatever the coast and city they're in, and they're commuting and experiencing work stress and not much beach time. Maybe their diet's not really optimized yet, and they may be struggling with the symptoms of the thyroid symptoms of weight and brain fog and fatigue and all those things. What are some of your final kind of parting thoughts for those?
Yeah. First of all, for all of you who are listening and you feel like, wow, I wish I lived that lifestyle and I wish that I could do some of these tips, you really can, believe me, because I was sitting in my cubicle back in 2013, 2014, 2015, just feeling like I worked in finance for 7 years. And I tell you, I spent every penny on my healing. Everything I made was going to doctors and trying to, rewind and rewire this lifestyle that was so toxic. So I was spending all my money on my health, and it was just like this vicious cycle. So when I quit that, I really gave myself permission to live a lifestyle that was, just so aligned with health. And so I ask you to ask yourself, I invite you to really analyze why aren't you able to do some of those things? And if it's financial, okay, I really compassionately get that, but see what's blocking you from really setting yourself up for a healthy lifestyle, because you only have one life. You only, in this body, in this lifetime, you have one life. So if you really take a deep look and say, why am I stuck in this situation XYZ, we start to unravel it. And it sometimes means leaving a partnership. It sometimes means leaving a job. It sometimes means getting a little uncomfortable. And I have to say, because when I had a functional medical doctor I was working with when I was living in New York City, and she really said to me, like, this lifestyle is killing you. She's like, if you really want to heal your thyroid, you've got to get out of this relationship and this job. And at the time I kind of was like, how would the heck would I do that? How the heck would I leave a 6-figure income and a 7-year relationship? How would I just didn't understand or see it possible. But looking on the other side, if I hadn't changed that situation, I don't know how sick I would have been. Much sicker than I was even at that moment. I would have gotten so much worse. And so looking back on it now, I see the light, and I see the choices that I've made that really were able to heal my body. So I understand if you're stuck, if you think you're stuck, because you're not really stuck, you have free will. If you feel stuck in some area of your life, really take a look at that and ask yourself, why? And do the things you can do. Set yourself up for a yoga practice every morning, and really surround yourself with people that are supportive of your lifestyle, and people that really want to learn and want to be inspired with you, because that energy of people that are not complaining about their life and not stuck in these situations, you're going to all elevate and inspire each other and empower each other. There's simple things you can do, like get more sunlight in your life. Go to the infrared sauna and sweat and detox your body if you are in a cold environment that's not getting a lot of, ability for you to just be outside all the time. Get into places where you can float in a salt spa, those float tanks, sensory deprivation, so you can float and feel salt water on your body. And then go to the farmer's market and talk to the farmers and learn about where the food is grown. And of course, use essential oils on your body. And I make those. And it's so nice to be able to give yourself self-massage and self-care. And especially if you can't get a massage every week, you can't get lymph detox, or those practitioners aren't available to you, you can start to take care of your own body and learn how to give yourself that love that you want from others. You can learn how to give it to yourself, and your body will start taking care of you in return.
That is really inspiring. Thank you so much. I'm
Yes.
impressed with your strength over your journey and your dedication, and and your bravery, I would say, in sort of recognizing what you needed for yourself, and now turning to helping others.
If anyone on the call feels called, I lead thyroid yoga trainings, one-on-one healing retreats, Reiki attunements and certifications, and cleanses in Costa Rica. So if you feel called, if you're like, I need this right now, please reach out to me. I can create something completely custom for you that works with your timing, your budget, your initiatives and your intentions for healing. It's really my passion and my the reason I wake up in the morning is to give this work, and I really invite you to give it to yourself. You're worth it.
Absolutely. And what's the best place for folks to go?
Easiest is my website, which is www.thyroid.yoga. And you can also connect with me on Instagram at Fern Olivia. And then also my email, which is you can contact me either, this one's the easiest. It's Fern at fernolivia.com. And I answer every email that comes in, and I do intuitive medicine, intuitive work as well, and distance healing. So even if you're in a place that you feel like you can't get to Costa Rica or Portugal or somewhere around the world that I am, but you feel like in your heart you need some guidance and advice, I give consultations online. And I'm just really, really grateful for anyone who feels called to this work, to do this healing, because what you heal in your own body, it ripples out to others, and you'll be able to live a happier life on this planet. So thank you.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Fern. My Happy Thyroid is presented by Paloma Health, the first online medical practice focused on living well with hypothyroidism. You can go to palomahealth.com to learn more.